Tonight, I bring you a chilling collection of camping horror stories, eerie encounters, and creepy paranormal experiences. These stories remind us that sometimes we're not as alone as we think. My girlfriend and I were camping on Labor Day. We planned on leaving Tuesday, and everyone else at the site had already packed up and left on Monday. It was nice to finally have some peace and quiet. There were 2 people, each in their own site not far from us. Every time they walked or drove by, they stared at us. My girlfriend was creeped out, but I wasn't too worried. That Monday night, my girlfriend woke me up saying she heard someone trying to open the tent. I grabbed her headlight, opened the zipper, and pointed the light outside. I didn't see anything, so I assured her it was probably nothing, and we both went back to sleep. In the middle of the night, we started hearing footsteps again. Slow, crunching steps, walking really close to our tent, maybe about 10 feet away. My girlfriend gripped my arm, whispering for me to check. But before I could move, I heard something else, a faint voice. I unzipped the tent just a little and shone the light outside. That's when I saw her. A woman stood just beyond the trees, her hair tangled, her clothes filthy and torn. Her face looked pale, almost grey, and she stared right at us with wide, hollow eyes. Then, in a harsh, broken voice, she screamed, "Leave this place! This is our private land." The sound sent chills down my spine. It didn't sound human. My girlfriend screamed. We didn't wait another second. We bolted out of the tent, jumped into the car, and sped out of that campsite as fast as we could. To this day, we still don't know who or what that woman was, but we'll never camp there again. This happened on a trip a few years ago. One midweek night when the park was usually quieter, I woke up around 2 a.m., needing to use the bathroom, so I left the trailer to head to the comfort station. Our site was one of those corner sites, with a short trail at the back that cut through the woods to the lights near the washrooms. You could go around the front, but I usually took the shortcut through the woods to save time, especially when I was tired. As I reached the middle of the trail, I heard a faint noise right beside my ear. It sounded like giggling. I picked up my pace a little, figuring it was just a raccoon or porcupine. They can make strange noises. But I couldn't see anything or hear any twigs cracking, which I thought was odd. There was no sign of a person either. Just as I was thinking that, I swear I heard something deeper in the woods. A woman's voice, softly saying, "Hello?" To say I jumped would be an understatement. I sprinted full speed toward the lights, tripped over a log, and tore my pant leg and shin. I made it to the bathrooms in one piece, shaken, sore, and feeling pretty stupid. Once I was there, I did my business and tried to talk myself out of it being anything supernatural. Being the good biologist that I am, I told myself I must have just misheard a raccoon or something. I didn't really believe in the paranormal, so at worst, it was probably just a person out there, though that thought wasn't exactly comforting. I decided to take the long way back to my site, along the open road, instead of cutting through the woods again. As I passed the entrance to the trail, giving it a very wide berth, to be honest, I heard it again. A whisper, clear as day, saying, "Come back." I don't think I've ever run faster in my life. I'll admit, I'm a little embarrassed to say I don't use camp bathrooms alone at night anymore. But I still can't explain what happened that night. Luckily, my family got a new trailer the following season with an indoor bathroom, so it hasn't been an issue since. I went camping with some new friends once, and one of them insisted he not share a tent with anyone because he sleepwalks. We had already made plans for him to share a tent with another friend, while my girlfriend and I would have our own. I was a bit annoyed, but I let it go so we could enjoy the weekend. My girlfriend and I ended up sharing an awkward tent with a virtual stranger. That night, my girlfriend woke me up and said, "Your friend's name is freaking me out." I looked outside the tent and saw him just walking in circles. I told her he sleepwalks, so we just needed to keep an eye on him and make sure he didn't do anything stupid. About 30 seconds later, he started screaming, "Hello!" at the top of his lungs. That went on for a while. He stood in the middle of the campsite screaming. At this point, we were all awake and watching him, totally confused. Then he turned toward the woods, screamed "hello," and pointed his pistol into the darkness, luckily away from us. Up to this point, I didn't even know he had brought a gun. I grabbed mine too because I was thinking, what if he sleep shoots us? But he didn't. Instead, he put the gun down, went back inside his tent, and immediately fell asleep. The next morning, I asked him what he thought he was doing. It turned out he wasn't asleep. He thought he'd heard coyotes, so his first instinct was to wander off into the night by himself instead of waking any of us up. I never camped with him again. A few years later, he made the news for scaring the entire campsite one night because he was running through the woods and firing his gun erratically, claiming he saw Bigfoot and was trying to track him down. Really weird guy. My girlfriend and I went camping 5 hours from home for her birthday, right after a big storm. The park ranger told us no one else was there that weekend. We thought it'd be peaceful. After setting up our tent, we explored and found a few old, identical white cabins deep in the woods. They looked abandoned, and the whole area felt wrong, so we went back. Later that night, after a small campfire and some stargazing, we noticed how dark it was. We got into the tent, and that's when things got strange. We heard heavy footsteps circling the tent, then low, muffled voices. It sounded like people whispering, but we couldn't make out any words. The footsteps came closer until they stopped right outside. Then, silence. My girlfriend whispered, "We have to get to your car." We ran for it, slammed the doors and locked them. Both of us were shaking. Then I noticed my side window starting to fog up from the outside. Slowly, letters began to appear on the glass, as if someone was tracing them with a finger. They spelled out L-E-A-V-E. We froze. My girlfriend screamed, and I hit the gas, tearing down the dirt road. As we sped away, I glanced in the mirror and saw a faint green light glowing back near our site. We drove the entire 5 hours home that night, and we've never talked about that trip again. A friend and I went on a weekend camping trip deep in the middle of nowhere in North Georgia. We stopped at a small local grocery store to stock up on snacks and beer, only to find out it was a dry county. We asked the cashier if there was a nearby county where we could buy beer. She gave us directions to a bar just across the county line, about a 10-minute drive away. Since we couldn't buy any, we figured we'd just stop there and have a couple of drinks before heading to our campsite. We followed the directions she gave us, and as it started getting dark, we pulled up to a strange-looking building. It had no sign indicating it was a bar. All the windows were bricked up, and the only light came from a single bulb hanging over a screened door. It was the only light around for miles. We sat in the car for a moment, making a few nervous jokes about deliverance, and then decided we really didn't need a drink after all. The next day, we were chatting with some of the other campers at our site, locals by the sound of it, and we mentioned the bar. A couple of them, separately, told us that the place wasn't and had never been a bar. They said they thought we were being lured into trouble. We used to have a stationary caravan at a small campground by the North Sea. The place was tiny, maybe 40 or 50 caravans in total, with a few empty spots for tents. One year we were staying there for our holiday, but for some reason we decided to leave a day earlier than planned. That decision probably saved us from witnessing something horrific. That very night, someone was murdered right next to our caravan. Two women had been sleeping in a rented caravan nearby when the ex-boyfriend of one of them came to the campground in the middle of the night. He stabbed his ex and her friend. Both women managed to drag themselves out of the caravan, but collapsed and died right beside our caravan. The next day, our caravan was all over the news. Front pages, TV reports, everything. It was surreal seeing it everywhere. Had we not left a day early, we would have been there when it happened. We might have seen those women die. My friend and I were in the car, ready to leave for a music festival, when we got notice that it was cancelled. We were all ready to go, so we decided to just drive and find somewhere to camp for the weekend instead. We ended up in a sort of summer resort area upstate. It was the end of the season, so the place was completely empty. But it was pretty, with a nice lake and scenery, so we figured we'd stay. There were no pesky families with kids to interfere with the partying we intended to do. The semi-creepy but friendly attendant assigned us a site, so we drove down to it. We quickly noticed they'd put us in the site that was furthest away from everything, literally on the edge of the woods, surrounded by empty sites, and completely isolated. We thought it was weird, but still, it was what we wanted, to just drink and smoke in the woods in peace. So we set up camp, then hung around until it got dark. As soon as we settled down in the tent and put out the lantern, we heard an unmistakable sound off to the left of us, where there was nothing but empty campsites. Maybe 100 yards away, someone was slowly and deliberately sharpening an axe or a knife against stone. Long, slow, metallic strokes, over and over again. My friend was terrified, but I was laughing, thinking this attendant guy was obviously messing with us city slickers. She insisted we would have heard him coming and decided to call the check-in booth. He was there. It was almost half a mile away. There was no way he could have gotten there in time, and we could still hear the sharpening sound. The attendant confirmed there was no one else in the place except us. We ended the night locked in the car, holding a can of bear mace. My friend fell asleep, but I watched and listened all night. Shortly before sunrise, the noise stopped. The sun came up, and there was nobody around anywhere. I still can't explain it. My dad and grandpa like to fish and hunt a lot. One night, they decided to spend the night on the river in the Appalachian Mountains. It was really late when they said they heard these awful screams coming from the woods on the opposite side of the river. My dad said it was inhuman and definitely not a mountain lion or anything like that. He would know. My dad is a pretty big guy and doesn't scare very easily, but in that moment, he was frozen with fear and just held his breath until the screams finally stopped. He felt like whatever it was knew that they were there and wasn't happy about it. It gives him goosebumps just thinking about it. Needless to say, they don't fish there at night anymore. Last month, I drove up to the top of a mountain near McCall, Idaho in the middle of the night to watch meteor showers while the moon was just a sliver. so it was very dark. The dirt road at the top of this mountain was right next to an approximately 60-foot cliff, above where we sat with other drop-offs around us. My wife and I set up chairs, but we constantly heard pebbles and rocks falling off the cliff. It sounded like animals were constantly walking up behind us. It was very unnerving. After a few hours, we were fine ignoring those sounds. But then we heard very low growls or large breathing that could have only been a bear or moose from below, and it was getting really close. We couldn't see their eyes glowing when using a flashlight though. Either way, we got to the truck and noped straight out of there. The meteor showers were incredible and very memorable, but I'm glad we avoided whatever large animal was nearby. Years ago, my girlfriend and I were teachers. Every June, we would take a group of kids camping. We had a 12-person tent set up on our site, which was right next to a small lake. The site included a picnic table and a fire ring. Part of the trip was telling campfire stories about the Jersey Devil, since the campground was located in an area where there had been many sightings over the years. The kids loved being scared and couldn't wait to return the following year. This was around the 5th annual trip we had taken, and up to that point, nothing unusual had happened. On the last night after the stories, when the kids were safely asleep, my girlfriend and I sat by the campfire in beach chairs. We had just bought a new puppy and she was tied to the tent on a long lead so she could run around. Suddenly, the logs in the fire collapsed and the light from the fire dimmed considerably. Our propane torch, which was on the picnic table, dimmed at the same time. It became almost pitch black, and that's when the puppy started to growl. She was right next to me, and every hair on her back stood straight up as she stared into the darkness. Suddenly, from out of the water came a large figure about 20 yards from our site. At first, I thought it was a person, but then it bent over and started running on all fours. I could only see the outline of the thing, and the back end was higher than the front. It wasn't a bear, a dog, or a deer. It looked and ran like something I had never seen. It didn't hurry, just trotted by and into the woods near our site. I jumped up and ran to my car, turning on the lights. The car's headlights lit up our campsite, but there was no sign of anything unusual. I told my girlfriend to wake the kids because we were leaving. She was braver and convinced me to stay. We eventually calmed down and turned in for the night. I lay down by the tent opening with a large butcher knife and did not sleep until the sun came up. Nothing like this has ever happened to me before or since, but I swear I saw something that was neither man nor animal. I haven't been back to camping since.